I have a bucket, I have some water, and I have the brand new Nike Hypervenom Hydra regens, which means yes, of course, we are gonna do the thing. But first, we do need to get the boots out of the box, take a look at them, decide if they're any good, and we want to discuss the one mistake that Nike made with these. Firstly, very, very nice custom box. This is also kind of textured, so these areas that obviously replicate the boot are stood up a little bit, and then this kind of shocking bright blue I think looks absolutely fantastic. Same all the way around the boot. Blue Nike swoosh, the Nike football and the swoosh on the end. You will note that these are not my size, and that's because I've actually borrowed these. A friend of mine has let me borrow them in order to do this video, so thank you very much. You know who you are. And then we are going to open them up. Massive bright blue inside. I love the contrast with the spider in here as well, which we'll see on the boots. And here we go. I'm going to pop these out, and then we're going to take a look at the string bag. So let's get those out of the box. Nothing else interesting, all blue. This is the string bag, Hypervenom branding on the front, and then your black and blue, which will match the pattern that we'll see on the boots. Plain black on the reverse. It's pretty nice. Can't really complain. I do think the string bag on the Vinny Juniors that I reviewed recently was a little bit nicer quality-wise. I will link to a video on that at the end of this one. And this is the rather wonderful Hypervenom. Now, the first thing to note with this particular one, now I don't have the orange regen in hand yet, it's on the way to me at the moment, but just from memory of the OG Hypervenom, the texture on this just isn't, it doesn't have that waxy texture almost at all. It is pretty smooth. So when it comes to kind of touch and feel, you're going to be entirely reliant on the actual texture of the boot rather than any kind of waxy top coating. So that's interesting. It is very soft though. And it does, again, this could just be me remembering things incorrectly, but it does seem to have a really good amount of structure through this midfoot area as well. So overall, really, really nice. But we're not really here to talk about performance characteristics today. We'll do a whole playtest review. I have my own pair of these coming, so we'll do a whole playtest review. For now, we're going to look at how good they are, and then, well, throw some water on them, obviously. You get kind of a hint of what's to come with the blue and black just around the bottom of the boot here, and then the sole plate itself is black, fade into blue, and this is obviously your biggest difference from the original Hypervenom, because you have the hyper-reactive sole plate, which is from the Hypervenom Phantom 3. I have a pair of those. 1 second. Here we go, just to give you a little side-by-side so you can see it is exactly the same from one to the other, and I think this is a great inclusion to switch over to this particular FG plate rather than using the original, because I think this one's better. I would imagine it was actually done because it's a lot easier for Nike to do that, having used this on a few other remake boots. However, I said I think Nike made a mistake. This is where I think they've made the mistake. Not because they've used this particular sole plate and it's not a one-to-one recreation, but quite simply because it's not the easiest thing in the world to get this to go from looking like this to changing color, which I promise we will do in a second with the water. So why for a firm ground pitch? When most of us are playing on firm ground pitches, especially where I'm from or where I'm living, that pitch is not overly wet. And we saw in, for example, the Champions League final, where the boot itself isn't really changing very much. You need a full-scale downpour to get this to completely change. So, logically, should this have been an SG boot? Should Nike have released this in SG and the citrus, the orange launch, in FG? because I feel like it just would have been far more fitting for this boot and made it the color change that little bit more effective. Now, yes, a lot of us or a lot of people collect FG boots, or FG boots are maybe the most versatile option, but I think if you're going to do this, would have been handy to have SG. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. This is the insole, which is super nice. This is a much nicer insole than you get on most Nike boots at the moment. For example, let's take a look at what is in the current mercurial. This is really not of the same quality. This is actually reasonably nice, pretty sturdy. I would like a less slippy. There's quite a slick material through the top. I would like that to be a little better, but hey, what can you do? And again, copying that blue and black pattern. Then, speaking of slippy, can I get this back in? There we go. We do have the heel. Now, the heel does have that same kind of heel material that we got on the OG, which is a very slick synthetic leather-like material. I wouldn't expect too much in the way of grip to hold that in place there. I will, of course, put that to the test in my full playtest review, but these are very exciting, so I wanted to do this kind of unboxing of them. So do get subscribed, like the video if you want to check that out, and you can support us by becoming a Boot Wizard member if you would like. I will leave links for that down in the top comment and description, and also where you can, well, I would normally say buy these, but obviously not. These were an absolute disaster to get hold of. These were impossible. This is one of the most difficult drops I've ever come across in order to try and get a pair of football boots. That's probably a discussion again for another time. Feel free to let me know your thoughts all the way down in the comments. I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of thoughts on how this particular drop went. So instead, just if you want to pick up a pair of Nike football boots, links are down in the top pinned comment. They do help support the channel, and I've made sure that all of those links are for legit retailers. Whacking these on the scales, these are going to come in at 173 grams, so incredibly light. Again, do bear in mind that this is quite a small size. This is not my normal size. This is a UK 6, US 7, so it is going to be a little bit lighter due to being quite teeny. Okay, so let's do the thing you've all been waiting for. Now, as I said earlier, these are not my boots, so I can't go ahead and just dunk them into a bunch of water and soak them all the way through. They haven't even been worn by the owner yet. I will do that. I will go crazy when my pair arrive. We will soak them through and through. However, in this particular instance, hell, let's just pour a bit of water down here and see what happens. And you can see that change coming nice and quickly. Now, I wasn't sure how long that would take because most of the videos I've seen, people have kind of been like speeding them up to get that color change, but that's actually very fast. That is quite impressive. And then you get this, look at that. I think that's really cool. Like, yeah, it's a little bit gimmicky. The more water you add to this, the more it starts to come through. It's a little bit gimmicky. It's a little bit completely and utterly unnecessary, but I really like it. And I like how it makes the swoosh stand out. It's going to make the spider stand out on the back. Screw it. Let's do that as well. Hold on. Let's get a bit down that spider there. The spider's going to stand out as well. These are actually reflective, by the way. So they're going to pick up, if you were to have like a camera flash or something on them, the spider and the swoosh are both reflective elements. But you can see it stand out there. I think this is really cool. Now, the way that it actually works, I think is actually even cooler. My tub of water just fell over because I put it down precariously. That was foolish. So as I was saying, the way that this actually works is this top layer, or this white, is actually a top layer. And when it gets wet, it disappears and allows you to see through the boot. And then as the boot starts to dry out, you're of course going to see that come back in. And a couple of bits of information. I have to credit JMike from Unisport for getting this information, which is that this boot, the blue and black, is actually a perfect invert of the original Transform that came, which was in the orange and black colorway. So this is a perfect inverted colorway of that, which I think is pretty damn cool. And also, while this is super soft, and actually I'm not sure, again, I don't have an OG to test against, I'm not sure it's any different from what you've got at the OG, maybe slightly stiffer. It is hopefully a little more durable because of the way that they've changed the liner on the inside. So in the inside, there's less perforations through the liner, which should mean the boot as a whole is a bit more durable than those OG models, which obviously would be a good thing because that was their fatal flaw. So all really good. Like, my biggest concern with this was going to be, oh, it's going to be terrible because they're going to have to really reinforce it and it's going to come out poorly. This isn't quite the same, but this is the Hypervenom 2.5. So after the disaster of the Hypervenom 2, this was an update they did to bring back the original material with some reinforcement, with the Brio cables in there. And if we compare them kind of side by side, considering that this one's been used an awful lot, they're still quite impressively similar. I'm really impressed with what Nike has done here. This is an incredible remake with just a small adjustment, whether you think it should be SG or not. Yes, a slightly gimmicky element added, but I absolutely adore that. And if you didn't, well, the orange one was the one to go for, and that was also a lot easier to get. I'm really happy with this. I think Nike's done a great job. I think that this really put some much needed love and care into the boot community. Not necessarily from Nike, but from the community as a whole. It's something I think we've kind of been missing, and these remakes really brought that back. And everybody kind of got excited about them. Yes, bit of a disaster on the pickup, but sometimes that is how things go. I missed out myself. I've had to jump through many hoops to get hold of a pair, and I really like these. I give all the props to Nike for doing what I think so far is a phenomenal job. And yes, I will do a full breakdown, a full playtest of this when I have mine in hand. And in the meantime, Lockhart Boot Blog is the man to go to, as he has his in hand already. His that will eventually be mine. So do get subscribed, like the video, and then I will leave links around for the previous videos that I mentioned. Thanks for watching. Quick unboxing. I'll see you all soon.